Welcome back to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we like to talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. My name's Don Marshall. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood, and today I am your protesting protest boy. I am happily exhausted after yesterday's No King protests, and life is good.
Hello, my name is Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And today I am a sit in the house boy. Sit in the house. I'm going to break out of the walls. I've just been really super busy and went out to see a play that you can listen to on our Patreon.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. And it was a very mixed bag, very emotionally charged. And you can hear all about that. But yeah, I'm going to break out of the walls today.
I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and today I am a I don't know. I'm a Labubu Boo Boo boy. I have my
Labubu?
I got a Labubu for my birthday.
Is that's a little doll for those who don't know? I should.
Yes,
it's like a little keychain.
Yeah, the little dopey creatures you've been seeing on purses all around the world.
For the oldsters like me, they are the new Beanie Baby.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense then.
They kind of look like Munchie-Chi with really ugly faces. Like if Munchie-Chi were bred like French bulldogs.
Oh my god!
So naturally, Trevor can't keep his hands off them.
Yeah, that's right up your alley. Well, my name is Michael Willer. I'm a chubby chaser, and yesterday I was a pre-gaming pool boy because we went to our friend's place and did some late afternoon soaking in the pool in preparation for Bigger Vegas soaking in the pool.
You wouldn't want that water to sneak up on y'all.
You got to train. Always remember to train before you go into long soaking sessions.
Very important. And remember, out here, it's so dry that when you get out of that pool, it doesn't matter how hot it is freezing. It is so cold.
Well, because the water evaporates instantly, and that's cooling.
Instantly. Yeah.
Well, we want to say thank you to our patrons on Patreon and our partners. You guys help keep the lights on here at our show. We want to remind everybody to save 15% off your bearskin order with the promo code BigFatGayPod and use our Big Fig link,
please,
if you need a new mattress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We got great partners. Let's take advantage of them. We are on our countdown for Bigger Vegas. Don't forget, if you are attending Bigger Vegas, you can sit in with us live on our July 4th episode at 12 p.m. We now have our live Discord, and we have an awesome newsletter that goes out with updates for all sorts of things you need to know in the culture.
Yep.
We're also looking at doing a podcast family hangout. Like, apart from the live episode at Bigger Vegas, we're going to do a little chill time. We have a time that we're pretty much set on, but I think we'll wait to announce the actual details till we're closer. But we're going to do like a little hour of, hey, let's all hang out and have some drinks and
updates pending.
Yeah.
Well, in pop culture,
we got to play the music. The penguins just pushed Dan back off stage.
Goddamn penguins.
Someone help him back up. That was vicious.
Okay.
Little penguin stampede.
So just a little content warning. This will touch on the subject of eating disorders. So if that is a concern for you and you don't want to hear about that, just come back with us in, I don't know, Michael will give us a time.
To skip to the next subject, you can go to 12 minutes and 6 seconds.
So Teen Vogue, killing it as always, Teen Vogue.
I am so impressed by them.
Aren't they amazing? They did an article. This is actually from Brittany McNamara. They wrote an op-ed called TikTok Banned Skinny Talk #. It's only a matter of time until the new insidious diet trend replaces it. Brittany does a great job summarizing what's been going on with the #skinny talk, which has basically become really toxic. Like, if you're not hungry, you're not really in the game, are you?
Yeah, it's the dumping ground for all of the like thinly veiled, if you're not starving yourself, then what are you doing with your life, you fatty content?
Yeah.
Which TikTok has in their user agreement that you cannot do that kind of content. So they have to kind of like talk around it a little bit. And, that's why I say thinly veiled.
Well, and the other thing that I think is important to know here is that, yes, TikTok made a ban on this, but do you know why? Because they're so wonderful and good? No, because the European Union says you ban this or we'll ban you.
Yeah.
The European Union went in there and said, like, this is dangerous talk. You need to do something about this or we will. So most big companies, if the state says something like that, they're very responsive.
Yeah.
And as the article points out, like it's only a matter of time before another one. They use the Hydra metaphor, which I'm quite a fan of.
It's apt. It's very apt.
I pictured like Captain America like holding up some influencer by her like athleisure stuff and her being like, cut off one head and two grow in its place. And then she like bites her little cyanide pill tooth.
Well, kind of is, because it is. And the cyanide pill is apt because it is this sort of self-destructive cycle.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting because they banned it on June 3rd. I'm curious if anything has already started to spring up. You know, we're recording this June 15th. And there were a lot of articles about it. And actually, this one cites most of the others I saw. And I love to see Teen Vogue talking about, because like the rest of the stories, it's like, oh, it's 2 paragraphs. There was this problematic thing. TikTok banned it. End of story. And I love seeing Teen Vogue, as usual, being like, actually, that's not the end of the story. This is going to continue to morph and evolve and mutate. And here are some reasons why it's going to continue. I think we've actually featured stuff from Brittany before.
I think so. I recognize her name.
Yeah, she is a journalist and she's done a lot of articles in reproductive rights, sexual assault, LGBTQ+. She's also the features director at Teen Vogue. So she has a lot of say in what goes in that magazine.
In case you're wondering why we keep going on and on about Teen Vogue, it's, I think, 2 immediately evident things about this article, which is not unique to their op-eds. One, it is so clearly not written by ChatGPT. Like, this is a person who wrote this, you can tell. And there are 26 links supporting everything that's been written in the article with here's where this came from. 26. Yeah, which I feel like is just a degree of effort that most people aren't really going to in this space.
Correct.
Well, I think also just, I mean, we've talked about this before. I think most of the time, whenever we have something from Teen Vogue or Cosmopolitan or something, where these magazines have evolved so much from like when we were all teenagers.
Makeup tips, how to satisfy your boyfriend.
I mean, kind of related that we were talking about in the Discord, if you're in the know, talking more about the Meghan Trainor video and how looking at it through a modern lens, it's like, oh, well, like Meghan Trainor's not really like that plus size, but then like, like, no, but if you step back into 2014 and look at like, that was such a huge change from 2007, Britney Spears at the VMAs talking about like, oh, look how fat and disgusting Britney Spears is. And like, she just literally looks like Britney, like
that size 6 chubbo.
Yeah. The culture has evolved so much. And now Teen Vogue is talking about that and talking about how like, we've made all this progress and we're swinging back.
It is true that, you know, the magazines like Elle and Vogue and things like that are becoming more conscious of like, what are you putting out there? But I think that is largely to do because social media and things like TikTok, they have completely taken over the makeup tips space. They've completely taken over the diet and exercise space.
That's fair.
Probably true. Yeah.
So if you want to survive as Vogue or Cosmo, you better be on the other side of that because you're never going to win it.
And maybe more to the point, I'm curious if this is actually true. Maybe it's also kind of like, look what we have wrought.
Yeah.
You see the results of what you've done and it's kind of disturbing. And it's like, hey, maybe we should take this in a different direction and try and like undo some of this damage.
Oh God, Michael, I hope you're right.
Maybe, but apologies are rare.
No, I don't think anyone would ever say that.
Well, but I think that's actually accurate. I think Brittany McNamara grew up, you know, I think she's kind of around our, you know, you and me, Michael's age, and grew up in this like hyper toxic period of, oh, look how fat the celebrity is. And it's like, it's literally just a woman. Like she's just, like it's a mannequin. It's like, are mannequins too fat? Here's 5 tips for busting mannequin flab.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, in case you're thinking the men are spared this, they are not.
No.
There is a corresponding, although again and again, you don't see it in things like muscular development or muscle and fitness. What you do see it in is again on TikTok, where these gorgeous 18-year-old, 20-year-old guys are, you know, talking about how, the way I keep myself hungry is, or the way I keep from eating at night when I'm starving is.
Yeah.
The secret to my success of thinness is being at peak metabolism in my 20s, like pass that along.
Well, and of course, skinny is very feminine marked, which is why no guy ever says they want to be skinny.
Mhm.
Whereas with women, there's been titles of books called The Skinny Girl's Diet.
Mhm.
Things like that. You will never see a diet book called The Skinny Man's Diet. That will never occur.
No.
So
not a chance.
that implies lacking musculature too.
Exactly.
Which women aren't supposed to be muscular.
Yeah.
That's too masculine.
So what is also interesting is whereas you can say skinny in a woman's space, and it's because it's feminine marked, you will never hear the words in the male TikTok. You never hear hungry, and you never hear diet. You hear the Latin version of starving, caloric deficit.
Mm.
So it's very scientific.
Yeah.
It's very scientific,
Mhm.
dude. It's very calories in, calories out. It's very objective. No emotion here. It's just pure science.
I mean, you do hear diet, but in the form of like not going on a diet. It is, this will be your diet or your like regimen or your intake.
It's in the same sense of like your chest routine.
Yeah.
It's dialing in your macros, Although I see a complete disappearance of macros, it's now all about just calories.
But don't they use codes in the male spaces like cutting down?
Oh, yeah.
Or,
Shredding.
yeah, they say it in different ways, but it means the same thing.
Well, it doesn't, because Trevor's accurate in that it's always in the guise of, but it's going to make you bigger and stronger.
Right. Maybe part of the difference is also like, the idea of losing weight is
Feminine.
Yeah. And for the guy, you're not supposed to lose weight, which would be muscle and fat. You're supposed to lose fat and gain
Yes.
muscle, which
Yes,
might not
yes,
mean that
yes,
you're
yes,
actually
exactly.
lighter.
Yeah.
It is always, they're building muscle as they're losing weight. You can't just lose weight.
Yeah.
You got to build muscle as you lose weight. You got to be boxing.
Yeah. The other thing about cutting as opposed to losing weight is that cutting implies that you are already muscular. You have bulked up, which is to say got fat so you can gain muscle. And then you're cutting so you can lose the fat and retain as much muscle as you can. So it's all inside of this whole trope of getting bigger, stronger, muscular.
Yeah. It's all problematic, but I think we have an eagle waiting in the wings.
Do we now?
On your left.
Fat Watch 2025.
So in Fat Watch today, we have VJ Salazar, which I believe we've featured him before a few months ago, but he had just a really short and sweet video on Instagram about allyship. And we want to just quickly, we'll share a clip of that.
I am a fat Latino educator with ADHD in recovery from disordered eating, raised in a city that was made up of predominantly immigrants from all around the world and all walks of life. And almost every part of my identity is under attack. I don't have the luxury of not being political. Everything I do is political inherently, right? I just want to remind folks that your resistance might look different than hers, than his, than theirs, and that has to be okay because that's how we can all keep fighting.
So that's kind of what I mean by allyship is it's the idea that not everybody is going to inhabit those same identities, but we have to present a unified front. And whatever that looks like is what he's pointing out is like that might look like protesting, which Don did yesterday. That might look like, giving money to certain organizations that are doing things. It might look like reaching out to people that that are just struggling mentally, like what he's talking about, and being a support system for them personally. I think it's really more specifically a call to not let apathy drive your journey. And for me, I think this is particularly helpful because for me, it's not so much apathy as it is exhaustion.
Yeah.
And just like mustering the energy. And you don't have to muster the energy to go out and march if that's not your thing. But I think it's really perilous to think that there's nothing to be done. Like you got to find your thing.
Yeah. When I like this because I think it's even like there's been a lot of different things I've seen about like find your activist style. But I think even just like staying informed and curating people to follow who are really on the ground doing the work and covering these stories. I'm like, specifically for me, I've been like seeing what people in my network are sharing regarding the protests in LA and the ongoing ICE occupation, and like finding reporters who are like really on the ground. Like there's a reporter for the LA Times who is like on the ground in a gas mask, covering these stories, sharing footage, being like, okay, this is what's happening in this intersection in LA. There was a peaceful protest. It's being broken up. You know, they're tear gassing senior citizens and parents with kids, trying to stay informed in the sea of reactions, misinformation, people trying to send up the signal flares, but there's 20 million signal flares going up at the same time and you can't
pay attention to all of them.
Follow what's happening.
Yeah.
And so, Don, you were talking before about like what it was like to go out as a fat person to the No Kings protests. So I would love for you to kind of talk about that for people who maybe were like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't think I can because I'm fat, or...
It was a concern for me. Like, I am not in the best shape of my life right now. And so the idea of having to march around downtown LA, like that wasn't very appealing to me. But I wanted to attend a protest. And I've been to a bunch of the Tesla takedown protests, and they're very stationary. So I saw a lot of people there bringing things like folding chairs and setting things up there and making things comfortable. But yesterday's protest was so big. I noticed at the protest I went to, there weren't a lot of fat people there, because I think we do find it a little intimidating. But I found that the protests that are not mobile, right, that are stationary, if you don't have a place to sit, you can bring a chair. I saw a number of people with chairs set up yesterday with protest signs. I also saw people utilizing their lack of mobility as an advantage. I saw a couple people bring chairs and then like a med kit and set up just a little med area for people if they're feeling under the weather, right?
Like a service stand.
Service stand.
Yeah.
I saw people handing out water, some of them mobile, some of them stationary. So I just wanted to say what this guy is saying about finding your way of protesting. That's not just on a day-to-day thing. That can also be in protest marches. There are ways to participate that can fit every fitness level, can fit every body type.
How do you know if a protest is going to be ambulatory?
The website that was organizing the No Kings thing was Indivisible.
Okay.
On their website, they actually had things listed like seating available. Yes, no,
okay.
You know, and things like that. They didn't always indicate if it would be a marching thing, but in general, it'll be advertised as a march.
True.
It's going to be a moving thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
The protests do tend to be stationary. So, but you have to use some common sense. So like I went to the one in Hollywood, which I knew was going to be a little smaller. But what happened there was, for those of you who know the city, there was an intersection that was considered to be the gathering point. It was Vermont and Hollywood. And then the crowd just spills out from there as that is the center.
Right.
So the crowd stretched out to the intersection north, south, east, and west. And it was just enormous.
Right. There's nowhere to walk to. You're there.
Yeah, there's nowhere to walk to. You've arrived. There's public transportation that goes there. So there's not a big parking issue. You don't have to walk from your car. It was very convenient.
I have heard, however, one of my friends said that they shut down the station where they were protesting.
That's possible. I hadn't heard that.
Tracy Cox, the opera singer, fabulous fat activist, wrote a piece for the NAFA blog about protesting in a fat body, and then also in that link to her experience being arrested as a fat person in a protest. I had a very specific fantasy. And Dan, I sent this. No, because like I was going with this. Going
officer,
to a protest.
I've been very naughty.
No. Going to a protest, but like knowing that like I'm having some knee issues on and off, like I just can't. That's not realistic for me. But having a scooter at a protest, and then specifically, there are scooters that are for like off-road that have tank treads.
Oh fuck.
Oh my god.
And they're these, and I just like had this vision of just like gas masked fat people in these tank scooters, just like holding the line.
It always comes back to the League of Fatties, doesn't it, Trevor?
Yeah, it's we may we're not there yet, but I feel like it may come to that. So I'll link that in this episode stuff, because it is just very interesting as a like piece of equipment and something like that. There is off-roading scooters,
all-terrain scooting.
Fat Rose, another fat liberation organization, has kind of in the past talked about the tank division of like people in mobility assisted devices taking part in protest as and like that as a fat person in a scooter, you are actually kind of like using your size to your advantage.
Yeah.
Well, and also you can't get trampled easily if you're on a device that is bigger than you are. So
Yeah.
In LA yesterday, they turned horse police on against the protesters.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure like, well, guess what? We've got cavalry too.
This is very much it's an oops all Avengers Endgame episode.
Although I do want to see Trevor show up in a chariot pulled by a Clydesdale. I think that would be very...
It's strange times, but find your way to take part and just like stay informed, have conversations with people, be like, oh, have you seen what's going on? Because there are people who are incredibly unplugged and I envy them. Where it's like, what? Like there's the army is in Los Angeles? I didn't know that.
Oh my God. I'm somewhat willfully unplugged. And even that's kind of inexcusable.
That's not unplugged. That's willful ignorance.
Yeah, but it's
different.
What a beautiful thing in some ways in this era.
In this day and
Let's
age.
face it, during these times, that might just be self-preservation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I've been trying to do is, because there's times when I just can't turn on the news,
Yeah.
listen to that news story once. Like I don't need 6 different coverages of the military parade.
Mhm.
I don't need to hear that article in 6 different outlets, 6 different ways. Like, okay, I know it happened. Or this happened at a protest in Hollywood. Okay, now I know that happened. I don't need to listen to 6 articles about it.
Yeah.
I've been using Ground News, which is an app that aggregates news from all different sources and kind of, they have a way of like coming up with, it's this credible and, being reported on the left, the right, or the center and blah, blah, blah.
They're also one of the most notorious podcast sponsors out there. They're getting a free plug from us, guys.
Oh, yeah. I guess I should. Well, anyway, I've quite enjoyed it because it has a lot of controls for how much and when and where and why you want to opt into certain quantities of news. And it's been really helpful for me, actually.
Well, going into our main topic, it's a mailbag, baby.
Yay.
Roll that beautiful bean music. Hot off the presses, we have some listener mail.
Yay.
And this listener writes, can't wait for the Big Fat Gay podcast at Baker Vegas. I know you've talked about medication-assisted weight loss before, Ozempic type things. I am on one and I feel like I'm betraying the community. Do other members of the community feel like that, I wonder? I have to lose weight for my back and joints. I still feel like if I do lose weight, I'm not going to be welcome at events as a chub. I've been told in the past that I wasn't fat enough to be a chub at MCA in Oklahoma City. I don't and will never fit into any other cliques. What are people's feelings of chubs who lose weight and where do they belong?
That is such a fabulous question. And one I've heard many, many times.
Yeah.
And a complicated one because like I've said multiple times, like I am a fat man where it counts my brain, right? Like I've always been fat. No matter how much weight I lose, I will always be a fat man in my head.
Mm-hmm.
What I've frequently said about this is even if you didn't lose an ounce, you are always going to be too fat or too thin for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a constant. What happens though, if you lose a lot of weight in the chub chaser community, all of a sudden, there's going to be differences in who's attracted to you. But that was always true.
Mm-hmm.
What is so unnerving though, is that the guys that you used to get with sometimes are less interested. But on the other hand, there are guys who weren't interested in you who now are because you're kind of in their envelope. And it doesn't matter because you can't be other people's size, right? You can't do it for them. Ultimately, when you're good with your body, the right people show up. And I will also say for the people who sort of drift out of the what we're going to call the chub zone, like, oh, why are you here? You're not even chubby. You be where you think you belong. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I will also say that it also works on the other side because then if you're at that in-between size, you also have the ability to date in the non-chub chaser community because there are people in that community who would never go to a chub chaser event, but they're like, oh yeah, you got some meat on you, but you're hot.
Yeah.
Look for it opening up other possibilities either within the community or from outside the community.
So I was thinking about this and I thought of some conversations I've had at events over the years, including one, I think I've talked about this before, where it was a convergence in New Orleans and it was the last day and I was on the riverboat and I was talking to this chub and Bigger Vegas was going to be the next summer and they'd announced it and people were chattering and excited. And I said, oh, are you going to go to Bigger Vegas next year? And he had 2 daiquiris and was just like, I mean, I guess if I don't lose the weight before then.
Ooh. And that happens where like I'm in the Chub Chaser community because I have to be.
Yeah. And I think in the case of the person who wrote this letter, they want to be part of the community. But I think it's kind of, if you do lose weight, what do you bring to the space? There's a thing that happens when fat people lose weight where very often they become like super fat phobic. And I think there's also a thing of like, my mind went to Evita and the song Rainbow High, where they have all these people swooping in around them as they get a new haircut and they get new clothes and people are being nicer to them and they're just surrounded and they're
eyes,
like,
hair,
yes,
face, figure, place.
And they're in this new world and they are they're shifting everything about themselves. And I think there is an allure to that, but I think you have to, like, if you're going to lose weight and you're going to go post your weight loss transformation thing on Instagram and do all this stuff, how are you going to treat the fat people
that you left behind?
Peers? That you left behind coming back into the space? Like, what are you going to do? And how are you going to still shut down fat phobia? Did you do that before? I feel like if you didn't, you have a responsibility now to really like call out fat phobia, and maybe if people are being nicer to you, like be like, oh, like now that I'm like, I've lost weight, you're treating me differently.
Well, yeah, to use your newly acquired privilege.
Yes.
I just had kind of a thought about the idea of like when he writes, it feels like betraying the community. Like if I lose weight, I still want to be part of the community, but I'm not going to be fat anymore and I'm attracted to chasers. I'm sort of assuming because then the attraction element of fitting into the Chub Chaser community kind of no longer applies. Mm-hmm. He's like, but I'll still be chubby, but people are going to say I'm not fat enough for it. And I guess
they say that now, you know?
Yeah, people say that now. And I think there's also just like, those are not the entirety of the community.
Yeah.
Like there are shitty people like that. Absolutely. There might even be a lot of them. But that's not everybody. And it's also, I know this person somewhat, we've talked before, and I think that it's important to just keep an eye on the people who are going to treat you well before and after.
Mm-hmm. I want to call out basically, I feel like there's a lot of onus on the community and how the community responds to how people lose weight. But ultimately, I think we are all responsible for our own behavior. Mm-hmm. So I find whenever I go back into these environments, like I have to make a place for myself over and over and over.
Yes.
Right. That's always going to be the case. And maybe it's a little easier if you have a stable body type. But if you have I refer to my body as low tide and high tide, I swing back and forth. Right. And so when I was at my largest size, I made some chaser friends that when I lost weight, they just went away. It wasn't even like a break in sexual contact. It's just they didn't want social contact anymore. But my growth in the Chub Chaser community hadn't stopped, right? Like if I had just accepted that these are the ones that are available for me in the Chub Chaser community and just accepted that when they left, I was done, I would no longer be participating, right? My body changed. I need to change my own interactions too by finding new people over and over and over.
Yes, right. Very much so, Don. I agree with that. And I want to talk about, I don't know whether to call it the elephant in the room, but we need to talk about changing attraction and attractiveness. It is not a terrible thing if you're not attracted to every human body on the planet. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when someone loses or gains a lot of weight, there is a difference in attraction. Look, chasers experience this all the time. If a chaser gets fat, guess what? There aren't as many chubs into them. And when I point this out to chubs, they're like, oh yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. If I say to a chub, hey, I know you're really into me. And, I know you're upset with this guy who thinks you're not fat enough for now that you'd lose weight, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, but if I gained 100 pounds, you wouldn't be talking to me right now. And he goes, oh yeah, that's true. So we need to recognize and make space for the fact that you can fall off someone's sexual radar. Now, here's what happens though, Don. And I think what you said was a really good illustration of this. It seemed like they just disappeared around you. Like all of a sudden, there was this insecticide and they all died or left. And I think what that is the result of is they don't know and don't want to encounter the conversation that is really ugly, which is, I'm not attracted to you anymore. And they don't want to have that conversation, so they just avoid it and they disappear, which you could argue is better or worse. Most people are not accustomed to having that conversation because it can get really nasty, personal, and ugly. And how I've handled it is simply by continuing to interact with the person, except I just don't have it go to sex. Is that equally offensive? I don't know, but I don't know what other way to handle it unless they want me to come right out and say it.
Mm-hmm.
To tack onto that, I think there's also an element of, I don't know how many people are necessarily consciously aware of what they're looking for when they join bigger city. It's, I want to find the people that I belong with. I want to date. I want to find a relationship. I want to hook up with people, whatever. Like, I think a lot of people, like, this is certainly true of me, and I know it's true of others, that you sort of join not necessarily looking for people to hook up with, but you want to talk to people you're attracted to in addition to other people who come up that are interesting or whatever. And you're looking for community.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people are fully conscious of that versus, oh, I'm on here and I'm talking to chubs I'm attracted to, and now we lost weight, so I'm not going to talk to them anymore, which is shitty behavior. You don't have to like pretend to be attracted to them if they lost a bunch of weight and you're not anymore, but it's that break in connection. It's that I'm cutting you off now and you're no longer a person to me. Yeah. That's
It is garbage, but it's often born of, I don't know what else to do. It's like ghosting someone's text,
Right. That's what I'm saying is, like, I think if you're only on bigger city to hook up with people and you're clear about that from the very get-go, then if that person loses a bunch of weight and you don't talk to them anymore, they're probably not going to miss you.
Right.
Like there is no
well said.
loss there because there was no connection in the first place.
Right.
I think it's when, like Don's pointing out, like, you were friends with these people, like you actually had conversations with them to some degree, right? Like you weren't just fuck buddies. So I think that's where the difference is. Like, if you're forging relationships with people and then you drop them completely, that's not okay.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about something I feel like related to this, but I guess it's between like chub to chub, just kind of like the platonic friendships that get affected by the discourse around the GLP-1 medications. And I have a chub friend who was talking about, all of my friends are going on these drugs and like, do I have to go on them?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
Like,
oh, no.
And I was like, I mean, not unless you, like, if you want to lose weight and you want medication assisted weight loss, like you can, but you don't have to. Like it's, and they're just like, I feel like I'm going to get left behind.
Yeah.
And
well, because all their friends are fat, and what if they're no longer fat?
Yeah. And I think, this butting of heads and upset, and we've talked about kind of like fat influencers losing weight. And then there's been a lot of discourse this year around people going on these GLP-1 journeys, which, like, we've said before, you do you, but I think there was a fat influencer who I don't want to call out, but he recently started a weight loss journey with these drugs and made a very big announcement about it, but because he is also doing it in partnership with a company that sells these medications. And it's not the first time I've seen that, where they're like, well, come on this journey with me and this company that sells these drugs.
Yeah.
That's rough.
I think it's difficult, but I think it's, as long as like both sides are chill about, you don't call out your friend for going on these medications and they aren't trying to force you to do it. I think it's like, you can just still be friends and like hang out.
Yeah. I feel like changing your body type for someone else never works out
ever.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to kind of put a broader perspective on this too. It's not like this only happens in the chub chaser community.
Yeah.
This is actually, it's a break in belonging based on identity. And we see it all the time in many communities. I mean, the most obvious example to me is, my straight friend gets married. Okay, that's a shift in our relationship. Then they have kids. They drop off the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you are either going to be the best gunkle you know how to be, or you're just not going to see them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if you're me, I want to see you without your kids. I really don't want to interact with your infants or your toddlers. I have no interest in that. And I get that is a self-imposed thing by me, but it is an identity shift, because you used to be, my really good friend, then you became my really good married friend, and now you've become my really good parent friend. And I don't have a lot of parents in my life. And so that's something that happens. You don't see it as much today, but it used to be a thing where you and the boys are going for your gay brunch. And then one of your friends reveals that, they're kind of exploring their bisexual side and they're dating women.
Yeah.
Huge shift.
They get ostracized.
Huge shift. And
That's
so it's
true.
not just weight. It's not just, because I'm fat. This happens all the time in many kinds of communities.
Well, but so I'm curious because like I'm really curious what Bigger Vegas is going to be like in a, post Ozempic era, and if there's going to like, is that going to be part of conversation? Like how it has just kind of like really, I feel like it's kind of died down because there's so much other discourse happening and, the world's on fire. But there's a point it was like everyone was talking about.
Yes.
And is it going to walk in and be like Invasion of the Body Snatchers? And you're like, and you're going to be like, oh my God, it's like everyone's pod people. It's like, yeah, but who wouldn't want a snatched body, honey?
Yeah, exactly.
And then they just like point and screech at you. Like I have sympathy for everyone involved because it is such a weird thing to navigate in a space that is celebrating bodies. And like, what is it like to have this apprehension going in, but with like, because you're like, oh, well, like, is this not a safe space for me as a fat person anymore? Or is this not a safe space for me as a formerly fat person?
Yeah, I'm not sure people would agree that it is a celebration of bodies. It can be. I think a lot of people are there to get laid, and this affects how and when they get laid.
As in,
I mean, well, yeah, but what better way to celebrate a body?
I celebrated it 3 times.
That feels on brand to me. Yeah.
As an armchair historian, one of the things that you do see in the past is that the trends in beauty tend to be towards the bodies that are hardest to achieve in the time period.
Interesting.
So in long periods when like food is hard to find, the larger body is beautiful. And, so I'm kind of curious as Ozempic makes the thinner body more accessible if we're going to see a shift in beauty standards again.
Yeah, because here's my fantasy. Look, I think in my perfect world, no one has to live in a body they hate. Wouldn't that be great? No one has to live in a body they hate, either because they change their opinion of their body or they change their body, whatever. Mm-hmm. That it's that easy. That it's like putting on you don't like your blouse, change your blouse. So I think, what would it do to the Chub Chaser community if the only people who were fat in a Chub Chaser event were the people who really wanted to be fat? Not necessarily gainers, but just, there are a lot of chubs who are like, they wouldn't know who they were if they weren't fat.
And same for chasers too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, what would that be like if you took away the shame and fear?
Yeah.
And it really was a celebration of bodies because you like the body you're in.
I want to live in that world.
And that's almost never true of human beings, that they love the body they're in.
Grass is always greener.
Yeah. I feel like it would improve the Chub to Chaser ratio.
I think it would.
Yeah, I would think so.
A little Thanos. I keep going back to Endgame. All things perfectly balanced.
It's in there.
Well, that's been my contention, is that it's not that there is a lack of chasers. I think there is a lack of out chasers.
Oh, yeah.
There is a lack of chasers who even know of their attraction because there's a difference between someone who has a really large range in body size of what they're attracted to. And by the way, almost all chasers have a very wide range of what they're attracted to compared to non-chasers. Like a chaser is attracted usually to a 100-pound range. Most men are attracted to like a 30-pound range. So I think that there's so many chasers out there who either don't know they're chasers or who are ashamed to be chasers because fat is stigmatized.
Mm-hmm. I know I've said it on the show before. I'll say it again. The presence of fat channels on all porn sites
absolutely
now, like it just indicates it's a viable option now. Like people are clearly seeking it out if they're presenting it in that manner.
I just, to that point, I found it very interesting that the BBW tag existed long before, like as a default search choice, existed long before the Chub tag. You would get Bear on the gay side.
Yes.
Yeah. Bear was around, but Chub is I would say, relatively recent addition within the last
because of shame and fear.
5 years.
Brand Bear is a lot more popular than Brand Chub.
So hopefully this was helpful for the listener. If you have anything you want to add to the conversation, you can write us. You can find us on Discord. That's an easy way. You can also use the email address, bigfatgaypod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. This is obviously a very deep topic, and I don't think there's any wrong ways to contribute as long as you're not sliming people. So we'd love to hear what you think.
I wish I could bake a cake filled with rainbows and smiles.
Yeah.
We can all eat it and be happy at Bigger Vegas. I might get cupcakes for our little fan meet and greet,
Ooh.
by the way. So if you want a cupcake at Bigger Vegas.
I mean, who doesn't want a cupcake at Bigger Vegas?
Yeah.
Come on. What about a tip for today?
I have a tip. People were sharing some songs in Discord. So I thought it would be fun to kind of like in the countdown to Bigger Vegas, share more songs for your driving, flying, walking, tunneling to Bigger Vegas playlist.
Oh, the mole people, they always show up.
Oh, dude. So there's one from this band called New Weirdos, and the song is Refill.
Mm-hmm.
And the singer's fat. It's a very kind of like chill, like backyard, floating in the pool vibes.
I actually liked it a lot. And
Yeah.
the man's got a gorgeous big bellied bear body.
Yes. Yeah. And the other was someone in Discord said, oh, so last week we talked about Meghan Trainor, and I was proposing she go into a new era of like 80s synth pop, plastic surgery, looks maxing, embracing science vibe. And they said, oh, here's a song for that. The song is I Love the Knife. And I don't know if it's Riley or Topic. It is exactly what I described. It's a very specific vibe, but I think it is also kind of fun and dark. So check those songs out. Add them to your playlist.
All right.
Okay.
Bit.
So in the world we live in, health is so confusing. There's so many people coming at you with these different suggestions. It's so hard to filter them out. So I found a list of health tips showing up on TikTok.
Oh, God.
And I thought, let's go through a few of these.
Oh, God. Slit your throat. It's healthy.
You'll lose so much blood weight.
So all of these are very dangerous suggestions that have shown up on TikTok. Guess which ones are real?
Oh, my God. What do you mean by real? Like they're actually on TikTok or you made it up?
That are actually on TikTok.
Okay.
All right. I'll read you 4.
Uh-huh.
One is real.
Okay.
Sleep is important, and there's a lot of advice out there on how to fight insomnia. What popular trend has been turning up on TikTok as a way to help you fall asleep faster?
I've already got it.
1.
Slitting your throat.
Chamomile smoothies.
Chamomile smoothie.
2. Steeping lettuce in hot water. 3. Cucumbers dipped in sugar. Or 4. Staying awake for 48 hours straight.
Oh, don't do that.
I'm going to go with cucumbers dipped in sugar.
I'm going with the lettuce tea.
Yeah, that makes no sense either. Yeah.
I can see the logic in a chamomile smoothie, I suppose. One of us will advance with this one. I'll say chamomile smoothie.
All right. Well, the correct answer is, in fact, steeping romaine lettuce in hot water.
Damn it. Once again.
Did Trevor pick that? Of course he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Trevor picked it.
Apparently, they think some enzyme in the lettuce they claim will help you sleep. There is no scientific evidence for it whatsoever.
Well, fortunately, there doesn't need to be.
Nah. Or, right, Magic kids. Gremlins, one of those two.
Probably magnesium.
Dan, you did, however, pick out another TikTok trend that is recommended against.
Oh.
Cucumbers dipped in sugar is claimed to be to taste like watermelon on TikTok.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a stuffy nose? Are your sinuses clogged? Well, no problem. Clearly shoving a foreign object up your nose is generally a bad idea, but TikTok suggests stuffing what into your nostrils to clear a clogged nose?
Oh, God.
1, dried split peas. 2, garlic. 3, onion. Or 4, fresh thyme. And yes, this is my split pea recipe.
I'm relieved you didn't say like power drill.
I'm torn between garlic and onion, but I'm going to go with garlic.
I'm going with onion because I want to get it wrong.
One for garlic, one for onion.
I mean, that does track with the trolling trends of saying, mustard on watermelon is delicious just to get people to eat it.
Yeah, or click on it.
Sure, I'll stick with that.
In fact, it is garlic.
That's Trevor. Okay.
Yeah, they've been suggesting you shove garlic up your nose in order to clear a clogged nose. Doctors point out that garlic is an extremely inflammatory thing to shove up your nose, so don't do that.
Well, so is your finger, goddammit.
So mankind has been looking for the cure-all for all disease, panacea for all that ails us for thousands of years. TikTokers are no different. Which one of these is a real and potentially harmful trend on TikTok that is being marketed as basically a panacea for all ills?
Everything.
1, mercury microdosing.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, my God.
2, drinking chlorophyll water. 3, intestinal flora gardening. Or 4, eating raw dragon fruit.
Did you make up the other 3?
I always make up all the others.
I want to go with
if intestinal flora gardening is not then that is brilliant. And
I'm going with that too.
Incredible.
It's so terrible. It's either brilliant or true.
All right, we got 2 for intestinal flora gardening. Trevor,
what was the first one?
Mercury microdosing.
Yeah, that's safe and effective.
I'm going to go with mercury microdosing.
You're going to go with mercury microdosing? All right. Well, in fact, the correct answer is drinking chlorophyll water.
Oh, that's so ordinary.
It is, but apparently it's remarkably dangerous to pregnant women.
Oh, God.
Who are one of the groups that should not be drinking it, and it's being
Well, it goes with your whole romaine thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last one. People who work out are always looking for an edge in achieving their dream body. Which of the following is real advice found on TikTok for bodybuilders?
oh boy.
1. After 3 days straight of extreme over-the-top exertion, spend the 4th day in bed with total bed rest to maximize recovery and gains. 2. Eating your pre-workout powder dry. 3. Wearing magnetic strips around your wrists and ankles during your workout. Or 4. Pumpkin spice colonics.
Oh, dear.
I think the 3 days and then a day of rest, because that just feels impossible to follow, but also still plausible.
Well, it's got that bodybuilding thing of like, no one's going to do this, but that's because you're a slacker.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was feeling.
What was the second one again? That sounded plausible.
Eating your pre-workout powder dry.
Oh, no, not that one at all.
I'm going with that one.
You are?
Trevor's going with that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what was the third one, Don? Okay.
Wearing magnetic strips around your wrists and ankles.
I'm going to go with that one because it's really old school and maybe it's made a comeback.
Well, the correct answer is, in fact, eating your pre-workout powder dry.
Fuck! Did Trevor get every one of these right?
Dan, I'm so disappointed in you.
I am too. No, because it's such a terrible idea. And you got to get a pre-workout powder is probably just stimulant.
Yeah.
The warning to it is that it not being hydrated, not only will your body not absorb some of the things in there, but it could be damaging in multiple other ways swallowing this clump of powder. So don't do that.
We also sent out a little poll from last week's bit for the 2 unused mentor choices, which were Dumbledore versus Gandalf and Miranda Priestley versus Mary Poppins. And we got some fun responses.
Yes, indeed we did. So in the world of wizarding, 70% preferred Gandalf to Dumbledore for their wizarding mentor.
As well, they should.
Okay.
Why, Michael, you sound like you have opinions.
And for the who would you rather have as a mentor, 80% to Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Response number 1, Gandalf, obviously, as he has not been written by Rowling.
Yeah. Fair.
Also, Dumbledore hid important things from Harry for no real good reason, and Gandalf also knows how to handle a big magic staff. Another listener says Poppins for me because she could be shady, but generally the goal would be to make people more positive and overall good people. Plus, she's practically perfect in every way.
That's true.
And the final submission, Dumbledore's mentorship is allowing you to suffer in ignorance instead of explaining things that could save your life until he's dead and it's too late for him to explain anything.
I will say, and I agree with the Gandalf over Dumbledore thing, but it is the point to conceal those things from Harry because Harry has to die. So it's not like, oh, you waited too long and then he died. It's like, no, the point was to groom him
to die,
to be okay, to be brave enough to die.
Yeah.
That is the whole point of Dumbledore taking care of Harry the way that he did.
It's the savior.
It's just shitty.
But it's the savior sacrifice, him and Jesus Christ.
Anyway, thanks for writing in. That was fun. If Don ever goes overboard on the bid again, we'll do that again.
I like it.
Well, Trevor, if the listeners do think I've gone overboard on the bid, where could they go to tell us about that?
Well, we're on Instagram and Blue Sky is at Big Fat Gay Pod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Leave us 5 stars on your preferred podcast platform and a review too. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BigFatGayPod. See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com. Baby. I guess that's it. Also, Patreon, newsletter, all that.
Subscribe to the newsletter. Be on Discord.
Discord. Maybe you are in the back of the car with Miranda Priestley. And you're not going down that road. You're forging your own path ahead. And she puts on her sunglasses and says, watch out.
And there we go.
Yeah.
That's all.